Life is, well, it's unpredictable, isn't it? We all kind of know that up here. But actually preparing for how that unpredictability hits our wallets, that's different. And I'm not talking about, missing a flight sale. I mean the big stuff, like a sudden huge dental bill, or the car just dies, or that really scary moment, a layoff notice. When those things happen, that financial shock, it hits hard, panic sets in. And that feeling, that scarcity, you're back against the wall, it often pushes people into really bad, high-cost decisions. Usually debt, right? High-interest debt. Yeah, panic is just the absolute enemy of thinking clearly. So today, we're talking about the weapon to fight it. We're doing a deep dive into the emergency fund. Think of it as your ultimate financial shield. And this isn't just some basic savings tip. This is really the core of being financially resilient, our mission today. To lay out a clear, step-by-step roadmap, 8 steps to build this shield for peace of mind, starting now. Even if, maybe, your savings account is sitting at 0 right this second.
That's such a critical point. The emergency fund isn't some luxury item you build after you're well off. It's actually the foundation you build to get secure. It really is the bedrock. It's that barrier, that immovable thing between you and, well, a spiral into debt when something unexpected happens. Because if you don't have that first layer of defense, a crisis, let's say, I don't know, a $3,000 surprise medical bill, it doesn't just stay an inconvenience. It can easily become months, maybe even years, of high-interest credit card payments. And that just completely throws your future plans off track, this reserve. It changes the game. It lets you handle risk without giving up your financial freedom.
Okay, so let's really get into that, the emergency fund itself. Because, yeah, everyone says save money, but we need to be super clear on what this specific money is for. And maybe more importantly, what it's definitely not for. So at its heart, it's a dedicated reserve, right? A completely separate pot of cash. Only for when life genuinely really hits hard. And those exclusions, let's hit those right away. This isn't for like patching small budget holes or that, oh, let's just go away for the weekend kind of thing.
Absolutely not. And definitely not for those consumption buys people rationalize. The treat yourself or stress relief shopping. Yeah, you have to build that mental firewall right from the start. It's crucial. The sources we looked at are really clear. The purpose has to be almost sacred. You need to be able to look at that account balance and know, okay, every single dollar here has one job. Keeping things stable if disaster strikes. We're talking real necessities like covering rent if you lose your job, or significant medical bills that insurance doesn't cover, essential repairs, maybe the roof springs a leak, or your main car breaks down and you need it to get to work, that kind of thing. If you start blurring those lines, if you dip into it for stuff that isn't a true emergency, the whole system just falls apart. You've basically just told your brain, oh, this is just another checking account.
Right. Okay, so the mindset is key. Untouchable reserve. Got it. But then comes the next big hurdle, and honestly, this is where a lot of people probably just freeze up, the goal size. If I'm starting from absolutely nothing and I hear experts talking about needing like tens of thousands of dollars, that can feel completely impossible. So what's the rule of thumb here? How do we make this journey feel, well, doable?
Yeah, that's a really common feeling. That's why the two-tiered approach works so well. It's designed specifically to tackle that psychological overwhelm. It gives you a quick win first, then sets you up for the bigger long-term protection. So tier 1 is what we call the mini fund. Aim for this first. It's a quick, achievable goal. Usually the target is about $1,000. Why $1,000? Well, studies show that amount actually covers a huge majority of those small, common financial bumps in the road. That surprise car insurance deductible or a minor vet bill, maybe fixing the washing machine, hitting that first $1,000. It gives you this massive psychological boost. It's like that snowball effect people talk about in behavioral finance. You get an early win, it feels good, and it makes you way more committed to the bigger goal.
Okay, I like that. A quick win. So build the $1,000 mini fund first, and once that's solid, once we've kind of proven to ourselves, hey, I can save, then we move up to tier 2, the main goal. And this is where we're really talking resilience. Aiming for, 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. And essential is the key word there. So this needs some serious thought. You can't just guess this number. The $1,000 was pretty straightforward, but figuring out the 3 to 6 month target, that takes some cold hard accounting. How do you accurately calculate that survival number?
You really have to get ruthless with categorization. That's what we call it. This is where you have to put assumptions aside and think critically. When you're calculating this number, you only focus on the absolute core monthly needs, nothing extra. So shelter your rent or mortgage, basic utilities, water, heat, electricity, necessary food budget, and that means groceries, not eating out, essential transportation, just what you need to keep earning income. So gas, basic insurance, and health costs, of course. And it's really important to ignore anything that's even slightly discretionary. Like, totally ignore. We're calculating survival money here, not lifestyle money. Ask yourself, if I lost my job tomorrow, what's the absolute minimum cash I need each month to stay housed, fed, and healthy? That's the number you're looking for. And there's another piece here, a crucial one, those hidden essential expenses. Most people just look at their monthly bills, right? But what about the annual stuff that's just as non-negotiable? Things like quarterly property taxes, maybe annual car registration, term life insurance premiums if you have them, big yearly insurance bills. Those can hit really hard if you haven't planned for them. So you need to break those down and add them into your monthly survival calculation. For example, if your car registration is, say, $600 a year, you need to mentally add $50 to your essential monthly total.
Huh, that's a great point. Often overlooked, I bet. So, okay, you add up all those core monthly costs plus the annualized essentials broken down. Let's use that example from the source material. If that number comes out to, say, $2,000 a month, then your final goal is pretty substantial, somewhere between $6,000 for 3 months and, wow, $12,000 for 6 months. That range, 3 months versus 6, that's a big difference in how long it takes, the effort involved. How should someone decide if they need to push for that bigger 6-month target? What factors come into play?
Yeah, it's basically a risk assessment, pure and simple. And it really boils down to two main things: how stable your income is and how complex your financial life is. You should definitely aim for the higher end, the 6 months, if your income is volatile. Think about people in industries that go through cycles, right? Tech startups, maybe seasonal work like construction, certain gig economy jobs, or roles where your pay really depends heavily on commissions or bonuses, sales, maybe some finance roles. If your income could just dry up in a recession, 6 months of breathing room isn't optional, it's necessary. Also, if your financial situation is complex, maybe you have several dependents, ongoing medical needs, perhaps complicated debt like private student loans, you need that longer runway, more cushion on the other hand. Maybe you're in a household with two stable incomes, perhaps government jobs or something with tenure. And if your expenses are pretty low and predictable, 3 months might actually be enough security for you. The decision shouldn't be based on like wishful thinking. It needs to be a really sober look at how long it would realistically take you to replace your income if you lost your job.
Okay, that makes sense. Assess the risk realistically. So that sets the target. We know the why and the how much. Now let's get into the how. The mechanics of actually building this thing. Phase one seems to be about setting up the right habits and the right infrastructure so the fund can actually grow. Step one, like you said, is tracking those essentials. I know it sounds a bit tedious, but it feels like that's the moment you go from this vague idea, oh, I should save more, to a real solid number. Okay, my goal is $12,000. Why is writing it down, that initial documentation, so important for sticking with it long term?
Well, without that defined number, you're basically just shooting in the dark, aren't you? If you don't know your essential expenses are, say, $2,000 a month, you might save $500 one month and feel pretty good about it. But you have no real sense of how that actually connects to the ultimate goal. When you have that hard number, $12,000, for instance, every single deposit becomes a visible, measurable step towards building that fortress. It creates accountability. It stops the goal from just, drifting away. And having that defined goal leads right into step two, setting up a dedicated, separate account. This might be the single most important barrier, both physically and mentally, that you put in place.
Okay, let's dig into that separation idea. Why can't I just, say, use the same savings account where I'm putting money aside for a house down payment? Isn't all saving good?
Well, yes and no. It's good saving, sure, but it's terrible mental accounting. That's a term from behavioral economics. What happens is when funds are all mixed together, even if you have them in different little buckets in the same account you look at all the time, they just become psychologically available for everything. You see one big lump sum, and your brain immediately starts thinking about all the things you could buy with it right now. So the strong advice from the sources is open a completely separate savings account, preferably at a different bank than where you do your daily checking. And this account needs to meet two critical requirements. First, it has to be liquid easy to get the money out in a real crisis. Second, and this is really key, it should not have a debit card linked to it. And ideally, don't link it instantly to your spending apps like Venmo or PayPal either.
That no debit card rule.
Yeah.
That's smart. It adds friction, right?
Exactly. We sometimes call it the pain of access rule. Think about it. If you have to deliberately log into a completely different bank's website, start a transfer, and then wait maybe 24, 48 hours for the money to show up in your checking account, that forces you to pause. You have to stop and ask yourself, is this broken blender really an emergency? Is it worth cracking open my financial shield for? But if you can just swipe a debit card attached to that money, the answer is almost always yes, right? It's too easy. That manual transfer process forces discipline, that separation, that friction. That's the real firewall against impulse spending.
Yeah, makes so much sense. The separation becomes your best defense against yourself, essentially. Okay, so now let's circle back to the size issue again. We've got this goal, maybe $6,000, maybe $12,000. And for a lot of folks, putting aside, say, $500 a month just isn't feasible right now. So step 3 is about starting small and staying consistent. How do we approach that without feeling defeated by how big the final number is?
Right. The size of the goal doesn't matter nearly as much at the beginning. What really matters is getting started and building the habit, the velocity. You absolutely do not need thousands right away. Consistency is way more powerful than the size of that first deposit. If all you can manage right now is $5 a week or $10 a week, start there. Seriously, the habit of saving is far more valuable initially than the dollar amount itself. But here's where the real magic comes in: automation. You want to take willpower completely out of the equation. Set up automatic transfers, recurring deposits. Have the money move from your main checking account into that separate emergency fund account every single payday, and ideally, set it up to happen the day before you pay any other bills.
Paying yourself first, or rather, paying your future secure self first, and doing it automatically so you don't even have to think about it.
Precisely. Automation is the secret weapon here. You set it and you forget it. You probably won't even miss that $25 or $50 once it's gone automatically. But the fund starts growing because the process is relentless. It requires zero ongoing effort or decision-making from you. Think of it like forced inertia working in your favor. You'll watch that balance climb maybe faster than you expect. And because it's separate, you just naturally adjust to living on the slightly smaller amount left in your checking account. That becomes your new normal.
Okay, that structure sounds solid. Track the essentials, get a separate account, automate the savings. So once that's all humming along, we get to phase 2, actively fueling the fund. This is about finding extra cash flow to really accelerate the savings beyond those regular automatic deposits.
Let's jump into step 4, cutting the small leaks. This feels like where we tackle that common feeling of, ugh, I just don't earn enough to save anything significant. Yeah, and that feeling, that assumption, it often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? The reality for most people isn't necessarily a lack of income, but more like death by 1,000 cuts. These small, almost invisible recurring expenses that just drain money away without giving much value back. You know, the classic example, the latte factor. We need to kind of update that idea. It's not just about skipping a $5 coffee, though that helps. It's about finding that cumulative waste from habits you barely even notice. So what we really encourage people to do is a deep dive, like a 3-month forensic review of their bank and credit card statements. Look really ruthlessly for those passive consumption habits, things you pay for automatically. Are you paying for, say, 3 different streaming services, but realistically only watching one? Do you have subscription boxes showing up each month that you don't even open anymore? What about that gym membership you signed up for in January and haven't used since February? Be honest.
And the key here, according to the sources, is temporarily pausing these things and redirecting the money, right? It's not about permanent deprivation, it's optimization.
Redirection. That's the crucial mindset shift. That's exactly it. You're consciously shifting cash flow away from low-value passive spending and into high-value active security building. But let's push this even further than just cutting subscriptions. A real deep dive should also look at potentially reducing fixed costs. Think about this. When is the last time you actually called your car insurance company or your cell phone provider? A lot of the sources pointed out that just spending maybe 30 minutes negotiating these bills, calling up, politely threatening to switch providers, asking if they have any current promotional rates you could get, that effort can often find you an extra $20, $50, even $100 in monthly savings. And that's not money you had to earn, it's money you found. And you immediately redirect it straight into the emergency fund.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
30 minutes of phone calls for potentially $100 a month. The ROI on that is way better than any savings account interest.
Absolutely. Think about the cumulative impact. If you manage to find just $100 a month, maybe cutting a couple of services and negotiating your phone bill down, that's $1,200 extra dollars a year going straight into your fund. That one action could potentially cover your entire Tier 1 mini fund goal just by cleaning up your existing financial plumbing. It directly speeds up hitting your big goal.
That flows perfectly into step 5, which sounds like the fastest accelerator.
Yeah.
Using windfalls wisely. We're talking about those unexpected lumps of cash, a tax refund, maybe a work bonus, even a generous birthday gift or some side hustle income.
Yeah, this is a really critical decision point, and it's where a lot of people stumble. What typically happens? Someone gets unexpected money, and their brain immediately switches to fun money mode. They see it as free money, permission to indulge because it wasn't part of their regular budget. And that usually leads to blowing it on, hedonic spending stuff that gives a quick burst of happiness but has zero lasting financial benefit. People who are strategic about building wealth, though, they see windfalls differently. They treat them as freedom money. Now, the hardline advice is often save every single penny, but let's be real, that's not always psychologically sustainable, is it? A more balanced and source-supported strategy, especially for a larger windfall, might be something like the 50-50 rule. Basically, 50% of that unexpected money goes immediately and no questions asked into the emergency fund. The other 50%, you can use that for some controlled, meaningful spending, maybe paying down a bit of other debt or even a small investment.
I like that 50-50 rule. It acknowledges that we're human, right? You get a bit of a reward. You satisfy that urge for immediate gratification just a little, but you still make massive progress on the really important long-term goal.
Exactly. It's about balance. But the key is, every unexpected dollar you strategically funnel into that emergency fund dramatically accelerates your timeline. Think about a $2,000 tax refund. If you put even half of that, $1,000, straight into the fund, that might instantly push you from having, say, 2 months of expenses saved up to nearly 3 months overnight. You're literally buying yourself time, crucial time you might need later to find a new job or recover from an illness or handle a big home repair without going into debt or panic mode. That's security you're buying. It's infinitely more valuable than, I don't know, a new TV.
Okay, so we've built the structure. We've found ways to aggressively fuel the fund. Now we're in the long game. Section 4. Maintenance, discipline, and what comes next. Step 6 seems really critical. Keep it liquid and safe. We touched on the temptation earlier. You see this nice chunk of money sitting there, maybe not earning huge returns, and you start thinking, man, I should put this in the stock market and make it work harder. Why is resisting that urge so incredibly important for this specific money?
It really comes down to understanding the fundamental purpose, the trade-off here. The job of this money is not growth. Its job is protection, immediate protection. If you suddenly need that cash tomorrow, let's say your basement floods, and you need $10,000 right now for cleanup and repairs, you absolutely cannot afford to wait for a stock trade to settle. Or even worse, be forced to sell when the market has crashed. The rules for where you keep this money are strict for a reason. Market crashes and big economic downturns are often correlated, right? They happen at the same time as personal financial emergencies, like widespread layoffs. So imagine the worst case. The economy tanks, your investments lose 30% of their value, and you get laid off, all in the same week. If your $12,000 emergency fund was invested in the market, it might suddenly only be worth $8,000, right when you desperately need the full $12,000. That completely defeats the purpose of having the safety net in the first place.
Okay, so maximum safety, immediate access. Forget high returns for this money. Where should people actually park it then?
The best place is usually a high-yield savings account, often called an ASISA, or potentially a money market account. These accounts offer decent interest rates, definitely much better than your standard checking account, but the key is they guarantee liquidity. You can usually get the money transferred within 24 to 48 hours, and they are incredibly safe. Just a quick technical point. As your fund grows, especially if it's getting up towards that higher end, like $12,000 or more, just double check that the bank or credit union you're using is federally insured. FDIC insured for banks, NCUA for credit unions. That usually protects your deposits up to $250,000 per person. It's just that extra layer of government-backed security. So, bottom line, we accept slightly lower returns on this money in exchange for absolute safety and immediate availability. Protection over growth.
Got it. Safety first. Which brings us neatly to step 7, the moment of truth. When and how do you actually use the fund? This must require huge discipline. Because now the money is actually there, maybe the temptation to use it for non-emergencies is even stronger than the temptation not to save in the first place. We really need to hammer home those usage rules again. What truly counts as an emergency for this fund?
Yeah, the definition has to be strict. You define the emergency not by how inconvenient it is, but by whether it poses a real threat to your immediate survival, safety, or ability to earn income. So, the clear emergencies are job loss, major unexpected medical or dental bills, or even vet bills if significant, urgent home repairs that affect safety or habitability, like the furnace dying in the middle of winter, a pipe bursting, a serious electrical problem, stuff like that. Or if your primary car breaks down and you absolutely need it to get to work, a catastrophic failure. And we have to be just as specific about what it's not for. It is absolutely not for buying new furniture because you feel like redecorating. It is not for covering your holiday travel costs because you went overboard on gifts. That's a budgeting issue, not an emergency. It's not even for, say, an unexpected vet bill that's maybe a few $100s and could technically be covered by tightening your belt elsewhere for a month. You have to pause and ask, is this truly a threat to my stability, or is it just poor planning on my part? If it's the latter, the fund stays locked. And here's a crucial follow-up. Once you do use the fund, even just a portion of it, there has to be an immediate plan to refill it.
Right, it's not a one-time project. It's more like a cyclical maintenance process.
Exactly. You have to treat it like an insurance policy that just paid out a claim. The moment that fund is tapped, refilling it needs to become your absolute #1 budget priority. Second only to paying for immediate survival needs like food and shelter. That means you might have to halt all discretionary spending, eating out, entertainment shopping, and aggressively redirect every available dollar back into restoring that emergency balance as quickly as possible. You have to rebuild that protection because another shock could always be just around the corner.
Okay, makes sense. Use it rarely, use it wisely, and refill it immediately. So finally, step 8. This is the big milestone, the post-goal strategy. You did it. You hit your target. 3 months, maybe 6 months of essential expenses are sitting safely in that separate account. You've achieved stability. What now? What's the next financial frontier? You can't just let that money sit there forever, can you?
Well, first off, reaching that milestone deserves a moment of celebration. Seriously. You've achieved a level of financial freedom from immediate crisis that, frankly, most people never reach. That's huge. The transition then is really shifting from a purely defensive financial posture to starting to play offense. You don't necessarily stop your saving habit, that automatic transfer might continue, but you strategically redirect where those new savings go. So instead of adding more money to the now full emergency fund, unless your expenses increase, you start funneling that cash flow into growth-oriented vehicles. Things like maxing out your retirement accounts, like a 401k or IRA, maybe starting to invest in a regular taxable brokerage account, or perhaps aggressively paying down any remaining high-interest consumer debt.
Ah, okay. So the solid foundation of the emergency fund, its safety, its liquidity, is actually what enables you to then take more calculated risks with your other money, like investments.
Precisely. That's the complete picture. The emergency fund protects you from life's curveballs, making sure you never have to say, sell your stocks low just because your water heater decided to give up. Because that shield is complete and reliable, the money you continue to save is now freed up to pursue potentially higher returns and build long-term wealth. It's protection first, then prosperity. Put them together, and that's how you build a truly resilient financial life. So if there's one core takeaway today, it really should be this. Building this financial shield, this emergency fund, it's not fundamentally about how much money you start with. It's about setting priorities, building consistent habits, and maintaining some serious discipline against those temptations along the way. Every single dollar you manage to save and strategically put into that fund, whether it's that automated $50 transfer each payday, or the money you found by negotiating your phone bill, or even half of your tax refund, it all adds up. It adds up to real, tangible security. And true financial security, that feeling of peace, it doesn't start when you hit some magic net worth number. It starts right here with this foundational peace of mind that the emergency fund provides. So the actionable advice is clear, right? Figure out your exact survival number, calculate it. Open that separate savings account today, make sure it doesn't have a debit card, and set up that first automatic transfer, even if it's small. Just start, stay consistent. Build that safety net $1 at a time.
And now that you know that number, the actual cost of your survival money, that 3 to 6 month figure, here's something to think about. What surprising financial decisions might suddenly feel easier? Maybe taking a leap to start that side business you've dreamed about. Or perhaps pursuing a job that pays a bit less, but feels way more fulfilling. What becomes possible when that paralyzing fear of the unexpected, that financial vulnerability, has been significantly reduced or even removed? What does real security allow you to dare to do next? Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.